meeting is being recorded. Welcome, everyone. This is the SIG Network Policy API subgroup meeting. Please be nice to each other and follow the Code of Conduct of CNCF. Oh, and today is the 11th of March, 2025. Let's see what we have on our agenda today. I think, Bowie, you're first with the pointer to slice issue.
Yeah, so this was brought up on Slack. I think Blas on our team tried to importing it into Cilium, and it looks like there's some mismatch between what is generated on the CRD side and what is kind of legit with the other protobuf generation. Just wanted to make sure everyone knows about this. And I think one of the goals for CRDs is to make it one-to-one with the API. So it would be bad, the old API stuff, including protobuf. So it would be bad for us to have an API that's incompatible in this way. I think there's some follow-up, so I don't know what the final disposition of it is, but I just want to make sure that everyone knows about this issue.
I think we've
ternary value here. There's not present versus empty. But it does present a problem because it's incompatible with some of the original stuff.
Right. So we've had this thread, right, in our Slack channel, and I think the outcome was that we should open some Kubernetes issue for that and figure out if that makes sense at all, because it seems like no one else is using pointers to slices. We did make it a pointer on purpose, but I think that discussion still needs to happen, and that maybe will make us actually change it if it's not a proper way, let's say, to do things.
Yeah, I wonder if other APIs solve this a different way, and for some reason, we can't be the only people who need this kind of expressibility, I guess.
Well, hopefully, but considering it doesn't quite work, that could be the case. So did you manage to create some issue on Kubernetes for that or something?
Yeah, I will follow up on that. What I meant with the other APIs is other APIs probably need to make a distinction between empty and not exist. And I wonder how they solved it. Did they didn't use the pointer. That's clear. So how did they do it?
Yeah, I mean, good point. So what do we do next year? First of all, I think it would be nice to link, as we are discussing it here, the original change where we've done this. Yeah, so here is the issue, and we've done a pull request here.
Oh, did I already make I already made an issue for this one.
Oh, a new one?
It was issue 247. There was a discussion.
Yeah, 247 is. Do you see my screen? That's what I'm sharing, right?
Oh yeah, you were just opening it as well.
Ah, cool. Okay. Okay, let me just copy this then, just as a regional issue. And yeah, I mean, I guess it needs more discussion, but then also, did we want to talk to someone about how this is not rendered properly? Or the code generator or something?
Yeah, it's not clear to me if this is like a code generator issue or a more fundamental one where Kubernetes APIs shouldn't have this, or something else. So I think I'll do some follow up on this, because the most straightforward answer is, yeah, let's fix the code generation. But sometimes these things are not you might run into some other problems because that's a more fundamental change.
Well, Go already has the concept of a nil slice as being different from an empty slice. Although having an empty slice being different from a nil slice is kind of, it's a bit of a mediocre API anyway in Go anyway, because it's just not the norm.
Yeah, it's not actually up to user expectations because the code treats the nil slice as empty and kind of similar, except if you like very closely inspect it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not unheard of to have nil, to do this kind of thing where you say nil. Nil means don't match on this. Empty means match on this, but don't match any particular thing. But it's not ideal. But then putting an extra pointer on it makes it more explicit, but also just then you have nil and you have a pointer to nil and you have a pointer to an empty, all being different. So I think the outcome of the issue was to squash it with validation, but I think I'd prefer if it was just a slice and you could have it nil. But I don't remember the exact reasoning for why others
There
pushed for
was,
something
I
different.
think, something inherited from the network policies also, right? Because there is, at least I think Dan clarified at some point that empty port slice also means like don't match or no match on nothing basically, on no ports, which means it will not match any traffic or something like that, which is different from nil ports, and that's how it started. So I guess we just need to maybe get back to this discussion and see if it still makes sense. But I mean, if that's how network policies work, we may want to be consistent with them. But yeah.
Should we reopen the issue, or it's basically Dan
Yeah.
closed this guy?
Yeah, no, I think it was closed when we just updated that. Okay, so now if we want to get back to this discussion, it probably makes sense to reopen it.
I think it makes sense to keep it open. Otherwise, it's confusing if you like route people to an issue and it looks like it's closed.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I can do that with just some comment, or maybe you can do that with the comment, as you prefer. Yeah, and so another thing I'm thinking: do you think we can open another issue, start some discussion somewhere else, just with the machinery people asking if they know if anyone's using that or like why it doesn't work?
Yeah, I'm gonna ping the API machinery people and then see if I don't want to like dupe an issue. They probably have one already, so I'll just talk to them on chat, and then if it's like truly novel, then yeah, we'll open a new issue.
I think Dan's rationale for the issue there, he's not on the call unfortunately, but I think he was saying nil not present must mean this has no effect on matching, but you can have a nil slice as distinct from an empty slice if you really want to. And I think that's probably nicer than having a nil pointer to a slice and the option of having a nil slice and a zero length slice and pointed to. So yeah, I think you can just make what Dan wants work with a slice and just have it be nil or empty, and then put min items 1 on it if you want to as well.
But does it round trip in the JSON and YAML?
I think that depends what flags you put on it. So I guess there's a separate question of, do we want to allow a zero length slice, like an empty slice of ports, and then that would mean match no ports. I don't know that we do want to allow that as so min items 1.
What would that mean? Match no ports.
Well, exactly. It would mean match nothing.
Exactly. So there, I mean, it's essentially a redundant specification, right?
Well, it would be if we had a way to match nothing already. There's a separate issue open for that. We don't currently have a way to match nothing due to the way the overall kind of match struct was defined.
Why would you want to match?
Yeah, nothing? Why would you match nothing?
Sorry, I mean, not restrict anything. And what am I talking about?
You mean match everything?
I'm getting confused with match everything. Yeah, we have no way to match everything. Yeah, I don't think you want a way to match nothing unless you're like auto-generating rules and it just makes things more uniform when you're auto-generating things, but it's not a particularly strong.
Okay, I guess we need also to go back on the history. Do you think of this? Because so the change that was last done is just it limits the minimal amount of items. So the pointer was there before, right? And it's probably coming from the original cap or something like that.
No, it wasn't. It was added.
No.
I found the change that actually changed it from a slice to a pointer.
So yeah, okay, then we should go back to that one, I guess, first and see what was the motivation. And then if we can kind of revert it.
I actually looked at the description of the change, and it was not very clear. That's why I started the discussion on Slack, because it wasn't clear to me from the description as to why this change was made. It was like, oh, this is valid in Go, so let's do it. That's kind of like what I read from the description. So
okay, I see.
That's kind of like a backward reasoning.
Yeah, maybe we should actually go back on that one, because I think we, as this part was the last issue we've discussed actively here, maybe everyone's thinking about it, but the actual like change is something older that we should maybe revisit and also refresh our memory on that. So yeah, I'll put some links to the original one and then maybe add that to the discussion or start a new thread that we already have.
So maybe I would ask it in this way: what are the use cases that we actually want to cover? So maybe we should start with what we would like to be able to express using the ports list, and then see if either a slice or pointer to a slice can solve that, and that will probably be a better way to get an answer as to whether we need a pointer or not. It doesn't seem like saying match no ports makes any sense. I can see that match all ports makes sense. We would need a way to express that. And obviously match specific ports. Is there any third use case that I'm missing?
I'm reading Dan's comment. It seems like he's trying to fix, because you have a choice, right? It's like if you have nothing specified, does that match everything or nothing? And it seems like in this case, the obvious, like, well, to me, like, not obvious, but like there's like a conflict between what is most consistently obvious and what is like what probably users think makes sense, and those two are different.
But doesn't network policy have the same thing? So the regular Kubernetes network policy also only has a slice, and you can specify an empty slice. So the behavior there, I believe, is that you don't match on ports. So that's exactly the behavior that you want.
Yes, I think like that's like the sort of intuitive understanding, but then from a consistency standpoint, I think Dan is saying like you should do the opposite.
But isn't that we just don't want to allow empty list to be specified at all? And if you remove a pointer here, will not these min items validation still work as soon as you have anything specified, and then it will let you have an unset field at the same time?
I think there's like a mechanical issue, which is that the protobuf generation doesn't work with this. But that usually points to some more fundamental thing, that if we make the API generation work, it might cause a giant can of worms, because it's like...
No, I mean, if you remove the pointer here.
I see. But then that would just be an empty array, right?
Right, but so that's the point. We don't want to allow both unset ports and an empty array, because we think they should mean different things. But there is no point in setting empty list of ports and trying to say do not match anything, because it's not really reasonable for anything. So if we just disallow empty list of ports and allow to either just not set it or have it with at least one item,
Does that work in the
So that's the
round
question
tripping?
I'm asking. I don't know if
I
that's
don't know
gonna
if that-
actually work. I should try
Yeah, that's the
maybe.
problem, is I don't know if that consistently works in round tripping.
But yeah, I mean, it sounds like it could. Anyway, so okay, I'll try that also, and then also try to dig up the original change with that and what motivation was that, because I don't really remember.
So as I recall, like network policy had all these issues where the empty meant something, and then that was a problem because you couldn't treat it the same as the user didn't say anything. That's what I understand is some of the issues.
Right. And I mean, again, that's like what this comment says. It's kind of consistent in a way when you treat a list of ports as like which ports I only want to match on these ports, and then if the list is empty, like yeah. Anyway, this
But
thing I
like
think we've
maybe
discussed
like
here.
we one way to fix this that I just made up is like ports goes to a nested structure that then contains the list of ports, right? Like that one is very clear. Like it's either nil or it contains some field that's like port list. That
Well,
needs to
yeah,
be set.
that's another way to do like this thing, right? And no
Yes,
pointer.
but I think that one
I
is in other places in Kubernetes APIs for sure.
Yeah.
So
I
it
mean,
might be an easy way to like fix this. Like I think, yeah, I can think of examples where that
yeah,
already
actually,
is
if you can
done.
link some
Yeah.
examples, that also would be nice, maybe for the discussion.
I think it would be great if we can determine whether supporting pointers to slices is something that Kubernetes as a whole wants to do. Like it seems like admin network policies right now the first API that has something like this. Now, if this is something that Kubernetes as a whole sees as a viable solution, then fixing the code generation is the obvious next step. But if Kubernetes declares that pointers to slices is a no-go, then we'd have to change the API, right? So I think the outcome of what you determined, Bowie, is probably important in this discussion.
Right. So that's another conversation, right? I think we can have in parallel.
If the validation machinery can't allow nil slice, or if the slice is set require it to have more than one one or more entries, then that feels like a small fix to the validation machinery. Whereas adding the ability to do a nil, like a pointer to a slice, it then gives you kind of 3 0 values for that field. You've got nil, you've got pointer to nil, and you've got pointer to empty slice, which all seem it seems a bit weird to have 3 0 values. I can see you wanting 2, where you want a nil value that means do not match on this, and you want one that means match 0 of this, perhaps not in this use case, but I can't see why you would ever want 3. And pointer to nil is a bit of a weird thing to put in your JSON anyway. I don't know what that would even look like.
Yeah, certainly a very valid point. But the point that I was trying to make is that obviously we can go and fix the code generation if we decide so, but is this construct of a pointer to a slice something that should ever be used in Kubernetes for any reason? That's, I think, the fundamental question.
Yeah, I think, Blaj, let's follow up with the API machinery folks. I have a suspicion that it's actually like probably not recommended given how confusing it is. But maybe we should talk to some of the folks who've probably seen it before.
Yeah, I was arguing that I don't think it's a good idea. That's what I was arguing.
I'm with you.
Okay, so I think we'll follow up and come back on. We'll probably come back on Slack to see what people say, and then Nadia, I'll also try to dig up some examples. And I just left like, it's not super horrible because there's like ports and then port list, but that might just be like a verbose but sort of palatable workaround. If we find that
yeah,
the
for
pointer
sure.
to list, it doesn't quite work out.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I'll do a bit of a history search just to try and refresh my memory on how we even ended up with that. Okay, that sounds like a plan. Let's work offline during the next couple of weeks and see what we end up with. Okay, now if you don't mind, we'll follow to the next topic here, which is target final proposal coming out of KubeCon.
So I will be at KubeCon, and selfishly, I was thinking like if we have enough quorum that we can kind of try to target to settle a lot of the discussions, at least for the what sounds like a beta-ish proposal that we can kind of push forward. So I know there's like a big one which you have below, which is like AMP plus BAMP merge. And like, are folks going to be there, first of all? I know, Nadia, some of you guys are in EU, so it probably might be easier. And then like, how do people feel? Sean, I think I stepped on you. What you're saying?
I was just saying I'm going to be there.
Okay.
Yep, me too. And Dan will be there because we have a SIG network update. That's how I know.
I've got we've got CalicoCon on the Tuesday, I think. So that's like something I might get roped in to present at. So I don't know when a good time for these sorts of chats is.
Yeah.
So I think like leading up to that, probably maybe we'll try to have some more off-cycle meetings up to that point, so we can kind of hash out some more of this stuff.
So I think we can totally try we've tried, I guess, to figure out some things like that in the past during KubeCons. It's still very important to prepare as much as we can for that, so that only some things we know exactly what we are discussing, and we already have a list of pros and cons, and then we can just figure out which solution makes more sense, versus as if we don't even know which options we have. That may be more difficult anyway. So
okay, so like I'm happy to try to increase the discussions, and maybe we can have one per week going up to KubeCon. I'm just trying to like get more discussions going so that we can get into KubeCon with like not just starting from like having identified most of the things to discuss. I guess maybe that's the goal, is to identify all the things that we need to discuss.
Yes, that would be nice. I think we tried to have a list at some point, but yeah, so I've made this one NPAP. It basically should be a list of NPAPs, I guess, with all the options and alternatives considered. It's still, I think, the tenancy was a kind of part of our beta discussion, and it's not even close, at least until we figure out the other things, because it kind of depends on them.
Right. So maybe if I know in those notes, like we had that somewhere in the previous API review, maybe we just cut and paste it up here and broadcast on the Slack if we have just an up-to-date one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we just need to have that list and spend some more time in the next couple of weeks actually working on it. That's the whole point. Maybe even have another meeting to discuss some things.
Yeah, I think we should just have like try to have a meeting every week up to KubeCon. And if someone, I mean, I could do it, like creates, I don't want to create another doc. Do we already have one that kind of covers the open items? Just like the list, basically.
We only had one from the last API review. Maybe we could reuse that one.
Okay, maybe then let's like pull it up so people can find it.
Yeah, I was hoping that it's here, but it's just the copy of the text, but the link to the doc is not there. So maybe we can put a link here. And yeah, there are some things in flight. And then, as you mentioned, like this whole pointer thing is something we didn't discuss before, right? And that's another thing we may need to take decision on.
Right. Okay, so we can move on to your topic. I just want to make sure we get prepared for that. And then obviously we're going to have to book some time at KubeCon. So I'll send out some coordination, or actually anyone who wants to coordinate. This is like an easy, low-cost thing. Just send a couple of Slack messages to see when people are around.
I can help with the figure out the list of things for beta. If there is a place you guys want to put it, I can try to at least write it down. Write down what all we are chasing and the links to it and etc. if that helps.
Yeah, I think we can work on this document more or less together. I don't know. Well, I probably can just start a new one. And yeah, just, well, then put all the things we have as an important part there. And
By the way, this very obscure Google Docs feature called Tabs, I don't know if you know about it.
yeah, that exists.
So instead of
We
creating a
could
new
add it
doc,
here.
you could
Yeah.
create a. Yeah, there's two tabs.
You've done that, okay.
Yeah. So, like, because I just can't find docs, like, maybe we
Yeah,
can try
that
the tabs
actually
thing.
makes sense.
Yeah, I vote for not a new doc. There's too many
That's
docs already.
perfect. Okay, yeah, now it's here. Hopefully that's clean. Let's just add all the things there. There will be quite a list. And yeah, maybe we try to find like assignees or something so that there will be specific people pushing on each one of those. So maybe that will be easier. Otherwise, it's like everyone and no one is responsible at the same time.
Yeah, I think I like that idea. And maybe in fact, not just the Google Doc, which can become easily stale and we can only use it for KubeCon for meeting notes. We should try to put that on the project GitHub, similar to how SIG Network is tracking stuff towards beta, the project tracker.
Yeah. We even have that project somewhere already. It's just we need to create issue for everyone. I think Sean actually created, well, basically one for ANP and BNP merge, and that's why we have a linked NPAP now. So that's what we should do for all the other things, I guess. Yeah, and then just use that project.
Oh, is there, so the project's edit access is open for all? So we just need to, whatever Sean created, did it actually show up there? I thought that project, I don't think most of us have access. Do we?
So that's the project I remember, and it hasn't been updated for a long time. And then you can just, everyone should be able to add things, I think, to that board and just move it. Well, I don't want to spoil the status.
How is tenancy done when it's still in open state?
Well, it's obviously totally resolved. I don't know. I didn't move it here. Maybe someone else was playing with it.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
okay. At least maybe put this also on the doc. I'll try to see how we can clean this up.
There was interesting. I think I was talking to Tim about tenancy, and I think like one interesting thing came up, which is we should consider APIs that do large changes with small, like large changes across all the whole cluster. There's sort of like a general design principle that it's bad to do big flips. So that's something that I was discussing with Tim, like, how do we make it so that it's safe to roll out? But anyways, that was a thought that came up, because tendency of this like meta policy, it might result in like big flips across the cluster.
Yeah, I mean, that's a separate topic, I agree, but just in general, any ANP, you can't just kill the whole cluster with one ANP by just denying everything.
That's true.
So,
but yeah, anyways, let's I'll save that conversation for when we actually talk about tenancy. But that's something
Yeah,
that
okay.
we should consider, because right, like there's like so many of these outage postmortems are like, and we decided accidentally to like delete everything. So, right, and then there's like no rollout. Anyways, I think I don't want to derail the topic.
Okay. Yeah, good. So I think then basically the plan is we have some issues already, like for this pointer to slice, we can reuse this issue that we already had. Well, I mean, it actually have a different name and it's not exactly that one, so maybe we should just create another one. But anyway, we'll reuse existing issues to track things needed for beta, and then we need to create new ones for everything we have not listed here. We'll probably do that offline. The only thing I had here to update is that, as we discussed on the previous meeting, I've done an npap on this ANP and BNP merge. I've tried to list down all the options we've discussed. It doesn't have a specific opinion on which way exactly to go. It just I was mostly trying to list all the options, or the most popular options we've discussed for some of the things. So it would be nice to have some feedback, and then I can say, okay, based on this discussion, that's what we ended up with. I've also listed a current difference between ANP and BNP here, and I tried to, well, I mean, it seems like it's fine and we can figure out how to merge them. Again, it's all here, it's fairly short, so if someone can take a look, that would be nice. Bowie, I've seen your review and I tried to reply to some things. Thank you for reviewing that.
So I think like,
yeah.
As I recall, there was like, should everything be on just the one flat priority? And then two, like, what is the meaning of some stuff which may not make sense for BNP? That's what I saw. So one thing, just to make sure I'm 100% know how the API behaves, like, as I understand it, like BNP only applies if there's no network policy. Is that correct? Or
yeah,
is it always applied after?
I mean, you could see is that it is always applied. I mean, it's always there. The point is there is no way to have network policy and not have a decision on a matched traffic, because network policy has the default deny, right? So as soon as you apply it, all the traffic to which this network policy applies is default denied, and then everything else will be accepted.
Oh, I see. So it's like both implicit in the behavior and explicitly say it.
Yes.
I see. I mean, we could always modify the behavior. So I think that's one thing where we might need to be more explicit, because it's like it implicitly falls out of the old system where ANP didn't exist. but maybe that's like a very subtle point.
So what do you mean, like the fact that BNP will not be reached if there is a network policy? Or?
Yeah, like that's both how it behaves and also explicitly like what we're designing it to do. Probably it is in the docs. I'm just trying to clarify because okay, so from that diagram, right, there's this natural flow from A to N to B, right? But it's actually not quite look like that. It's actually like A to N or B if N doesn't exist. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
because like you can never go from N to B. Like that arrow actually can't exist.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
So I think like if that's what we want, we should definitely try to update all the diagrams and like the description, because otherwise you have this implicit flow that will like never be possible.
I mean, it kind of, yeah, I don't know. It kind of checks, if you have the rules at every point. So I mean, If you don't have network policies, yeah, it will go through. Even if you have network policy, but it applies to like one pod in a namespace, right? All the other traffic in the namespace will kind of fall through. So network policy is present in that namespace, but this traffic is not allowed or denied by a network policy, so it goes further to BNP.
Oh wait, is that true? But if you have network policy but it doesn't say anything about it, doesn't it just all get dropped anyways?
If the network policy, like the top level policy selector, if that matches your workload, your pod, then you get trapped in the network policy layer. But if it doesn't match your pod, then yeah,
So
you sail
this
through.
part.
Yep, the pod selector. And I always struggle with the language around that.
But
Yeah.
wait, sorry. So if it doesn't match, doesn't it just get dropped? No, or it gets
Nope.
allowed?
Nope. So network policy applies to this, right? You can have a pod selector here. If it's empty, it's the whole namespace. If there is something here, right, that like this one, for example, selects probably one pod from a namespace, it means all the other pods are not affected by network policy. So default deny only applies to what's selected here.
Oh, interesting.
I know.
So it's default allow otherwise?
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Okay, so it's truly fall through.
Yeah, kind of. It's just like as soon as your traffic is matched by network policy here, there is no way you can exit without a decision like allow or deny, right? Because it will be default denied and whatever is here is allowed. But if the traffic is not matched by this selector, it will just go through.
It will be default allow.
Well, it will go to BNP and then whatever happens next. But yeah, if you just leave in the... Well, it will do exactly this, right? So my specific packet, if it's not matched by network policy, not allowed, not denied, it will go here then to the BNP.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Default deny all ingress egress. This is not very obvious.
Yeah, I know.
But well, maybe on the diagram you can change that arrow. I think we changed it in our SIG network KubeCon talks to be more expressive, right? The jump from ANP to NP, I think we had two arrows that said if you have no matching ANP or if you have an ANP pass rule match, then you fall to NP. And then on an NP level, we had no matching network policy, then you fall down. So I think maybe we can write it on that arrow. That's what it means, so that people are not assuming it.
Yeah,
Maybe
I mean, we
once
totally
we've
can
got-
try to. Yeah.
Once we've got
Yeah, I mean, we have to rework it anyways. I'm just saying, like,
Yep.
I think it's, this is again like a little confusing.
Yeah, marrying the two worlds of kind of explicit and the implicit world of the old network policy is a little bit confusing. I wonder, like, once we've got admin network policy before and after network policies, perhaps we can like add a pass action to network policies. We could do a minor version bump and support both versions. So, it's once you've got that capability in your data plane, like maybe it's not as ossified as we think. Like we could add something like that and add rollout support for it. I don't know. Let's not open that can of worms. But conceptually, you could add a pass action to network policy, which would get you the diagram looking just as it is. But yeah, it is a bit confusing to marry the two worlds at the moment.
Okay, so
but with the
Nadia, like,
with these new details, does it make more sense?
Yeah, but I guess like, what's the next step for this? Keep accumulating comments for a couple days?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, there are some more difficult things here, right? And it's very short, so we need to decide something on that. So the first part is, how do you combine ANP and BNP? Do we use like this extra tier thing and then extra field to like distinguish ANPs or BNPs? And we've also discussed some strange ways to figure out it by just using priorities and defining a priority for the network policy. Say everything before is ANP, everything after is BNP. Yeah, has its pros and cons, I guess. So there are just a couple of fields basically that we need to decide on. And then renaming priority is another thing we've discussed. Also, order seemed to be the winning option there. And here is a list of the differences that we have that I've tried to outline how we could resolve. And that's basically it. So this is a fairly small NPAP. So yeah, I guess if everyone else, like if you even have like, there are usually a couple of options listed. So if you can at least just +1 to something, or list even why you think it is a better option in the NPAP, that would be nice. I could include these reasonings then as a part of decision making. So yeah, that part of the whole beta way is somewhat smallish. Yeah, I don't know if you have any questions right now about this. I think we've discussed that in details before, so just please take a look and leave some comments. Okay, well, I guess that's it for today. Do you have anything else you'd like to discuss today? Okay, then I think we want to try and be a bit more active in our beta discussions in the next couple weeks. Let's try to figure out a list of things first, I guess, that we need to work on, and then make sure we have all the issues for them, and then maybe even try to assign people to each of those and try to push these discussions forward.
Oh, actually, I had a question. So there is this SIG networks policies implementation. Should we make it a policy to also update that whenever we have like a behavior
You mean the network
change?
policy plugin that we have upstream from Antonio?
Yeah, like this thing.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense to at least try to keep these consistent with the current API. I don't know if we can like branch this to like a beta dev or something, because it's
yeah,
like
I mean that
somewhat of a reference. Like if we implement something and it's just like not feasible here, it probably is not feasible anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, and it probably would be one of the nice requirements for beta too, right? Together with some of the test updates, we've also had a full list of conformance updates that we wanted to do before beta. Yeah.
Isn't there a GitHub action to trigger Antonio to update it?
The Kube network policies actually already uses the latest ANP API, but it's based on the latest release of it. So I think the .3.5 something, like there's a way he does it. Usually when we do the new things, he takes it.
Okay, yeah, well, I mean,
I'm just saying, like, we shouldn't just, it's like Antonio, yes, like he can do it. I'm just saying, generally speaking, we should probably avoid that.
Yeah, no, I mean, what I'm trying to say is like we've tried to keep it in sync with upstream. So, but you are right that we don't do it in an official capacity. But yes, we all want to keep the Kube network policies implementation as like testing ground / CI thing. And we have lanes where we run it. Yeah, V4 and V6 lanes.
Right. So, for example, something big like this AMP BNP merge, like that, definitely, right, will have to be updated.
Yep. Yeah, I mean that's a good point. To also make a part of our beta CI and like better requirement to have it implemented there. Again, maybe together with the list of stuff we wanted to. I remember we wanted to improve some things around our conformance testing, but they may be all out closed now.
Yeah, this specific change of this big change, it should just be part of the, I think we have a conformance section in your own npep. So you just need to go and update the API changes of the tests, which will be the ones breaking.
Yeah, this one. Yeah, I guess we need to see what to put there. I mean, this one will kind of break everything in a
Right.
way.
It's
Yeah.
something like you have to update all the tests. I mean, I guess to
Yeah.
get your PR passing anyways, it would be a requirement. Otherwise, the CI wouldn't like be
Yeah,
green.
yeah,
So I
for the
think you'll figure it out.
implementation.
Right,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the PRs. Looks like I know Antonio does like a bazillion things, but look, there's like just some like dependency updates. Like it would be good to have folks take a look at this repo and keep it up to date.
Yeah, I mean, we've contributed a little bit to that already, but everything else was heavy lifted by Antonio, mostly. Okay, well, yeah, that sounds like a plan. Let's not forget to add it as a part of our beta plan. Anything else for today? I think that's a no. All right, then let's try to keep up the good work for the next couple of weeks and have some more progress. Thank you all for joining.
Thanks.